especially about bisexuals. Well, then you're out of line. So my name is Andrea, and I come from a very large family. And when I say like a large family, I don't really mean by numbers. I mean like large. I mean like large. Like all of the people are big except for me. The men in my family range anywhere between 6'5" and 6'9". My brother actually stopped growing at 6'3", and my father tried very nobly to mask his disappointment as he told my brother. So, right, son? No. At least you're over 6 feet. Over 6 feet is good enough. He then tried to rectify the situation by saying, by telling my brother that he still had plenty of chances to grow after he turned 19. My brother didn't keep growing after 19, and so he will always be sure to be at 6'3". In comparison, I tell other people that I'm 5'6" in the hopes that somebody will believe me and think that I'm actually taller than I am. So while my brother was a disappointment, he was certainly big enough to hand my ass to me every day when we were kids. And it was every day because we hated each other. The majority of my memories from childhood, I would say like at least 70% or so, are of the ends of arguments that we used to have. Eric landing like a particularly well-placed kick on the opposite end of the couch. Eric sitting on my rib cage using me as the couch so he could play Mario Kart. The bruises on my arms and legs, the tearful towels to my mother, that's what I remember. You know, funny enough, I don't really remember how any of these arguments started, and I suspect that that's because I caused them. I am like a fairly anybody in this room would tell you, like I'm a fairly shitty adult and I don't know how to keep my mouth shut. And I can't imagine that I was not like that as like a 6-year-old. So even though, thank you to the generosity of the human psyche, I don't actually remember deserving any of the beatings that I do remember, except for one time. I would have been 11, which means Eric would have been 8. We were coming back from a trip, 6 hours from New Hampshire to our home in New Jersey. We had just hit the city limits of my hometown. The entire 6 hours, by the way, has been spent at my insistence playing Ace of Base's hit single "I Saw the Sign" on repeat. So like we're already in like a groovy, happy place, right? And true to form, Eric and I start fighting. I don't remember how it started. I was probably a dick. And, but what I do remember is that my brother takes a cigarette lighter out of the backseat of the car, and he brandishes it at me. And I look at my brother, well, no, he's big, so I look at my brother, and I say like the 2 words that everybody here has said at one point and lived to regret, because I look at my brother and I'm like, do it! And so he does, and the next thing I know, I am screaming as loud as I can. And thankfully, we have somehow pulled into the driveway, which is great, because I like barrel roll out of my car like a Navy SEAL in Zero Dark 30. And I'm like, I'm so upset. My arm is like on fire. And my mother like pops out of the car. She's like, what has happened here? And I'm like, he branded me. And my brother's like, well, she asked me to do it. And I'm like, oh, I would do no such thing? Who would do something like that? And of course, everyone believes me, and they don't believe my brother, because what person, I don't care if you're 11 or 40, would like ask another person to brand them with like a giant piece of burning hot metal? The rest of the summer goes on, and I look like a walking ad for Target because I have a giant bullseye the size of a quarter on my arm, and I am singing to anyone who will listen how my brother, Eric Bickett, kid psychopath, like branded me out of nowhere, attacked me with a deadly weapon, and my brother tries to defend himself, but again, nobody believes him. Time goes on, more arguments are had, more scars are made, and as adults, my brother and I are actually very close. And we were talking about this, I don't know, maybe like a year ago, and he just loses it. And he starts like, his voice is shaking, he's like, I just can't believe that I would ever do something like that to you. You know, like I just don't understand what would have brought that on in me. It's a really dark part of my life that and the more that he's talking about this, the more it dawns on me that he doesn't remember what happened. That in my like 11-year-old brainwashing of everyone around us, that my brother was like crazy and malicious, he had started to believe that himself. And now I'm the only one who knows the truth. And now I'm the kid psychopath. And it causes me like a little bit of stress for a while because I love my brother more than anything. He's my favorite person in the whole wide world, and he's turned into somebody who is like so sweet and so kind and so full of hope, and there isn't anything that I would not do for him except come clean about this. And so eventually though, I do come clean, and I would love to tell you all that I like had this big moment and we could have like the Oprah connection where the guilt gets to me, and you know, my brother is my favorite person. There isn't anything that I wouldn't do for him. But the fact of the matter is that I needed an ending for this story, and I want you guys to think that I'm funny, so I decided to bite the bullet and tell him. And so, about a month ago, I am at work, and my brother and I are G-chatting. My brother goes to school in Rochester, upstate. And I just kind of like go for it. I'm like, hey, do you remember when we were kids and you burned me with the cigarette lighter from the car? And he's like, yes. I go, do you remember how you told everybody that I asked you to do it and nobody believed you? And he just writes back, I was never a smart child. And I say, before I can change my mind, I quickly type out, I'm like, well, you did, like, you were right. I dared you to do it, and that's why you did it, and I lied because I wanted you to get into trouble. And like, you know how on GChat you can see it's like, Eric is entering text, Eric is typing, Eric is entering text, and he does that for a while. And while I'm waiting for him to respond, I'm like suddenly transported back to that time in my life when we were kids. And I'm reminded of just how small I am and just how large my brother is. And for some reason I have this irrevocable conviction that my brother's about to walk into my office from Rochester and like beat me up in front of all my coworkers, and then use me as a couch to play Minecraft on my work computer. That is definitely going to happen, and I feel so afraid and so vulnerable. And my brother responds, and the thing lights up on the screen, and it reads something like, Andrea, I really understand that you're trying to make me feel better about this, but there's no way in hell I'm going to believe something that stupid. So, my brother still does not believe me, though I hope that telling the story to all of you will give this story an ending and maybe alleviate my guilt a little bit. Thanks, guys.